Hello, my name's Jonathan, and I am the DM for the Ring of Contrarians. And our current campaign takes place on the continent of Abet. This land once had 4 major civilizations. The human kingdom to the northwest, just above the great forest of the elves, with the dwarves residing in the serpent spine just east of the forest, leaving the last and fastest growing civilization, the orcs, to the cold expanse of south. Things on Abet had been relatively calm for a great number of years, the last major conflict being the War of the Twin Gods over 2,000 years ago. That is, until the madness struck the orcs, driving what was a passionate and religious people to begin killing any that were not wholly orcish. Even half-orcs were not safe, as their orcish parents would try to execute them. Only through the combined effort of the rest of Abet were they able to push back the Green Horde into the Badlands, a frozen waste in the southern regions off the west coast of Abet, and after destroying the only way back, effectively banishing the orcs. 50 years later, there is a new problem plaguing the land, that of the rifts, tears in the fabric of the world that leads to a place of monsters and other horrors. If that wasn't enough, some that come in contact with the rift either die outright or are afflicted with something akin to the madness, while a somewhat small population seem to be completely unaffected and can travel through a rift. That is where the Riftwalkers come in, an organization that is looking for a way to stop these rifts and to protect the people from the horrors that come through them. This is where our story begins. And these are the people who fight against the unknown.
Born and abandoned as a babe in Wellston, Birdie was given her name when she was adopted by Sefri and Donner of the Adrakin clan. As a human dragonborn couple, they were not able to have children of their own. They brought Birdie into their interracial household just after she turned 5, and she never felt unwanted or unloved. She was treasured by her human mother and doted on by her dragonborn father. He had hoped that she would follow in his footsteps and become a chronicler for the town of Hopter Springs, but alas, Birdie was never very good at sitting still for long. She much preferred to romp around in the dunes, looking for insects and pretty stones. When she was 17, Birdie left her home and became a caravan guard. She bounced from caravan to trade route for 7 years in the Tarragon Desert. She learned how to fight with a sword and bow, drive a cart, and even became fluent in giant and primordial along the way. Eventually, she was hired by Kiv Orfen, the blue dragonborn owner of the Rainbow Sand Serpent Caravan. She spent 5 years as one of their senior caravan guards and was cherished for her keen sense of direction. While bringing the caravan through the fort at the Gap, a rift opened, causing panic and mayhem. As armed, experienced combatants, Birdie and the other caravan guards joined together with the fort troops to protect the citizens as they evacuated. In that chaos, Birdie found new purpose and met a halfling named Lloyd, who recommended her as a new recruit for an organization called the Riftwalkers. She returned to Wellston for the first time in 24 years to take the Riftwalkers test. Of the 20 members in her trial group, 6 lost themselves to the madness, and 8 others simply disappeared. She was one of only 6 to survive the trial, wherein she was given a medallion inscribed with runes that read, "To close henceforth, a patch on the world."
Top of the morning to you. My name is Halfred Bramblethorn, but you can call me Dio. Dio eventually became my stage name, however it was a nickname given to me by my younger sister Hildy. She gave it to me because the village elders always called me a little devil. I was born and raised in a small city in Fargo called Norfolk. Known for its delicious export, the Wandering Minstrel Mead, Norfolk was the birthplace of the warrior Oldolf the Brave, slayer of beasts, and uniter of Fargo. His axe-throwing prowess was legendary, and I grew up hearing tales of his exploits. While my parents, Arnold and Hilda Bramblethorn, owned land as sheepherders, I was not content living such a boring life. Although I had become somewhat of a folk hero for Norfolk, earning the title of Goat Rider, I felt that my talents worked better outside the village. At 21, I took an apprenticeship with a halfling bard known as Ozzy Osbordus. Well known amongst all races, he was the lead singer of Yoldi Black Sabbath. After he pursued a solo career, I took his place as the lead singer, However, I got into several fights with the asshole of Elite Lutus Ian. I don't know what was stuck up his arse. Either he did not like me, or did not like the new sound of our band. Regardless, I left the band shortly after joining it. Following in Ozzy's footsteps, I pursued a solo career of my own. Many of my fellow bards recommended that I join a bard's college to better hone my craft. However, few wanted a halfling with a love for bagpipes. Thus, I taught myself how to play such a beautiful instrument. Without the backing of a university, however, my new music career could not take off. Whenever I heard that the Rifters were looking for new recruits, I saw this as an opportunity to both help people and spread my fame across the world.
This is the story of Kaine. Throughout my childhood, my parents raised me as traveling merchants. It wasn't too bad traveling between the towns and villages. In fact, it was pretty fun, and most of the customers were nice. But those happy times ended, however, when my father passed away due to some wasting disease. And with him being the one with the mind for business, my mother wasn't able to keep up with the sales the way he had, leading to financial problems while we were still in Wellstein. The pressure drove her to sell her body to the locals. In time, my mother became an abusive alcoholic, and almost every night she passed out with a bottle in hand. There was hardly any food where we lived, and most of the money was spent on drugs and alcohol, leaving me no choice but to go out into the markets and steal food for us so that we could survive. No matter what I did, however, she was never happy with me, and once I turned 13, she sold me off to a group of human pleasure workers for only a few gold coins. I never hated my mother for what she has done, but I didn't understand why she disliked me so much after my father's passing. But the feeling that I didn't do enough is always in the back of my mind. Being in a pleasure house for 7 years took its toll, so one day, while the house was asleep, I booked it out of there while carrying a knife and as much money and food as I could. I thought I was finally free until some of the workers found me one night as I was sleeping. Instead of dragging me back into the pleasure house, they decided to brutally beat me and left me out like trash. I woke up inside a small hut deep in the mountains with an old man at my bedside. He told me that he found me in the wilderness near death. As my thanks to him, I decided to help him with his livelihood and errands. It also turned out that he was a monk, so he eventually became my mentor for martial arts. I even found a new hobby in my time there, erotic books and mangas he kept under his bed. Reading the books gave me a feeling of happiness as I was taken into this new life where I could do whatever I want. When I was 35, my mentor's time was near its end, so as a final farewell, he gave me all of his belongings, including the hut and his stash of mangas. He was embarrassed revealing his stash, and he asked me not to judge him, but I reassured him that I knew about it this whole time. His sad facial expression quickly changed into a panic. Now that I think about it, I think the shock of me knowing about his stash might have been what killed him, but oh well. I knew that he was proud of my feelings towards his stash, and he died a happy man. After my mentor's passing, I decided to go on an adventure of my own and traveled to a nearby town where I heard of the Riftwalkers, a group of people that protected people from monsters and traveled to other realms. I'm curious what kind of manga different realms may have.
Greetings, I'm Leofin. I'm an elf who grew up in Wimmel, a small village known for its mead, located in the southern reaches of the Greatwood, within the Elven territory. My mother is a druid and serves as the village sage, while my father was a researcher who was studying a phenomenon known as rifts until he disappeared while on a research expedition. I had a desire to become a druid, so when war with the orcs loomed on the horizon, my mother sent me to the druid cloister to begin my training and to keep me out of harm's way. Afterwards, I returned home, with the war thankfully over and my village still standing. While at home, I learned of an organization known as the Riftwalkers that was accepting volunteers, and during my 50 years in the druid cloister, I had developed a bit of wanderlust. The Riftwalkers offered a chance to explore the world and involved themselves with the rift phenomenon that my father had studied, meaning there was a chance I could find out what happened to him. So I set off to the human capital of Wellstein to sign up as a Riftwalker.
I am a cleric. I am a half-orc. I am titleless. My name is Vola, and this is my story. My parents had me when they were in their mid-20s. My half-orc mother, Morga, ended up leaving me at the age of 8 after a heated argument between her and my human father, Victor. She told me in tears that she was off to find her orcish father, Ubel, whom she had always talked about in a loving way. However, my father never seemed to agree that there could be any love for an orc after what they did in the Great War. My mother did teach me quite a few things before she left. She loved to garden and taught me about many different plants, mainly herbs, since there weren't many dedicated healers in my city. My father, much like everybody else in Strauss, worked as a fisherman and taught me his craft. He took me on many trips once Mother left, so I gained a bit of seafaring knowledge and how to prepare and cook food. Considering mud crabs and other sea-like products were the city's major export, I mostly made seafood dishes. Even though my father had to support us by himself, he would always be sure to purchase me books. This love of books led me to work at a local bookshop where I mentored under a half-elf named Thomas. He was a skilled sorcerer whose magic abilities inspired me to pursue a path in magic. One night, there was a commotion outside the bookshop. Rushing outside, I discovered the ghouls had murdered Thomas in cold blood. Outraged, I took a warhammer from the shop and rampaged, killing the ghouls with no mercy. Thomas did not have any known family, so his possessions and bookshop were left to me. I continued to run the shop for a couple of months until I found a letter that Thomas had written to me. He never sent it, which bothered me. In the letter, he discussed my Okish ancestry and the inner struggles I faced with it. After struggling with Thomas's death, I read up on deities, trying to see if there was something I could have done for him. There was one that gained my attention, Uro, an Okish god who controlled the grave. Those who served him dealt with judging the dead. Inspired by Thomas's magical capabilities and the desire to protect the ones I loved, I devoted myself to Uro in order to learn about what happened to my mother and the Okish people. I joined the Rifters. To this day, I devote myself to my travels and friends in the search for knowledge and to hopefully one day gain my title as a protector.
Greetings! My name is Sifos Magnus III. I am a blue dragonborn who was born and raised in the town of Kreta. I was born to my father, Petrus, a precious gemstone merchant, and my mother, Madala, who was a stay-at-home mother and a part-time seamstress. I also had a darling sister named Kayla, whom I was very close to. Taking after my father, I inevitably partook in the family mercantile business. While I was away on business, a rival merchant family, the Flamethors, hired thugs to beat and maim my family and left them to die in a fire. I came too late to save them, and now I only seek vengeance against the bastards who took my family. After a bout of mindless ravings, I found myself stumbling into a rift. This brought me face to face with Badran, a demon warden of an unknown prison in the Rift World. After seeing his awesome power, I knew that he could help me in ending the Flamethors once and for all. Being a businessman, I struck a deal with him to close the rifts, if he could lend me his power. Seeing me as a means to an end, he made me his warlock, to go back to the material world and destroy any and all rifts that I came across in my travels. After this, I heard the call of what I can only describe as madmen, the Rift Walkers, who seek to end the rifts and put an end to the madness. I now serve as their vanguard, and slay any monsters that come between this plane and the one beyond. With these rifters being my stepping stone, I shall gain favor with Bataran and get all I can from him, so I may take my revenge on the Flamethors and cleanse the world of them once and for all.
After taking the test to see if they qualified to become Rift Walkers, by not dying after coming in contact with a stable rift, the party is sent off to their base of operation in the city of Harva, where Dio, Vola, and Leofin, along with Uthal, a Goliath paladin, dragging another member of the party, a drunken monk named Wiz, set off. On their way, they are attacked several times by goblins in the area, and eventually lose track of Wiz, who just seems to wander off. After arriving at the Rifter's Eye, a tower owned by the Rifters, they meet their superiors, Malachi, a human wizard, and Lloyd, a halfling ranger. They are sent on an expedition through a labyrinth maze in the form of a library in search of information. After skeletons and sturges galore, they obtain a bestiary and some other books for Malachi to study. After returning, Uthal is traded off for two other rifters, Sifos and Kaine, from another branch to the north. The party then deals with a group of bandits hired by the city lord's son, who is actually a doppelganger in disguise, and You know what? This is kind of a whole thing, and if I have to tell you every little bit, we'll be here for hours, and I don't think you nor I are willing to object ourselves to that. So I'm just gonna try and do this a little quicker. So, here we go. Birdie was lost on the other side of a rift and made her way out, but her team didn't. The party found her roaming the woods while on a mission to investigate a possible rift. Bam, boom, creepy spiders, weird tentacle rock monster, dead, dead, dead. After that, a break. Birdie is reassigned to the party by the higher-ups. Malachi sends the party to the elves to test out a new device of his, a instant message box, and to find out how their trees teleport people from one tree to another. Oh yeah, they do that. Only real way to travel in the forest. The party travels to the capital of the elves, Airedale, but can't get answers unless they do the elves a favor. After hearing them out, the group grudgingly helps out Leofin's old classmate from the cloister, Jinro, to take back a tower. They do, and surprise, surprise, a secret organization is trying to take over the elves through some other douche. Sprinkle Pop with a zone of truth and some keen eyes, the problem is solved and the party is given access to a top secret portion of the library, where they find out some stuff about an old empire and a tidbit about the elves and dwarves originally being from the other side of the rifts, which is called the Void. After that, and a bit of a political snafu, in the form of trespassing, the party is banished from the Great Forest, unless they can secure a better trading deal with the dwarves. The party is also given a hint and orders to search out the Air Genasi temple in the mountains while they're there, which they do after they fight a bunch of Neogi and Beholderkin and one slightly crazy beholder who was after some creepy ring, earning them a trade deal. Also, they help the dwarves secure sources to develop gunpowder, but who cares? Because there's rumors of war breaking out in the northeastern desert between the Dragonborn and the Fire Genasi, and the party gets to go to temple, which they do. And by chance, meeting up with Wiz, who turns out to be a master of the Drunken Fist and one of the leaders of the temple. After a test, the party is given access to a portal that will let them learn all sorts of things. And in it, they find Leofin's dad, Petrick, who has been in the portal for 90-some-odd years. After retrieving him in what only felt like 30 minutes, the group came out to find that it had indeed been 3 months, and have been given orders to go back and retrieve more information. They say goodbye to Leofin's dad and head back in after retrieving Petrick's notes and some other books. They exit the portal to find themselves in an empty temple with no one in sight.